Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shane. I run the events over at TEN Capital Network, and we're really excited for another TEN Life Science meeting today. We have four amazing companies, and I'm going to bring up our CEO, Hall Martin, to get things kicked off. But in the meantime, please don't forget to put your questions in the chat box, which is unlocked now. So feel free in the audience to drop them there. And also don't forget to answer the poll at the end of each pitch so we can get your interest in each of our companies. I'm going to let Hall take it away.
Great, Shane. Thanks you guys for joining us today. We have another great set of presenters with us. Before we kick into that, let's meet our investors for today. First up, we have Ji Lee of Oak Seed Venture Partners. Ji, can you tell us more about yourself and your fund?
Hi, everyone. Great to see everyone here. And again, my name is Ji Lee. I'm based in Austin. I wear two hats. I am a venture partner for Oak Seed Ventures. Oak Seed Ventures focuses on next-gen computing. And I'm also an angel investor where I invest in SaaS, MedTech, and it's going to be a great session and look forward to meeting all the founders and the investors. Thanks, Hall.
Great. Thanks, Ji. And also with us today is Jim Mills. Jim, can you tell us more about yourself and your work?
Sure can. Thanks, Hall. So I am based in Chicago. I'm a longtime telecom exec. I was with Radio Shack back in the day. I went on to Vonage and Sprint and T-Mobile. And nowadays I'm off doing a whole variety of things. I'm an advisor. I'm a board member, both nonprofit and for-profit, and I'm a coach and a mentor. I'm really happy to be here today. Looking forward to your presentations. And thank you, Hall.
Great. With that, let's go and kick into our first presentation. We have Buddy Lyons of Intact. Buddy, let's go ahead and have you come up and present first. If you could launch your slides, we'll kick off with you.
Thank you,
and
Hall.
we see the slides now.
Can you see those?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. I am Buddy Lyons. I'm the CEO of Intact Medical. We develop acoustic wearables for predictive medicine. And we just launched our first product in 2023. We expect revenue in the first half of this year. Current sales pipeline is over $400 million in revenue with 23 hospital systems that represent about 400 hospitals. And we're expanding our sales force from 18 to 32 by the middle of the year. Our Previs AI platform, which is an acoustical IoT wearables platform, we expect two submissions there in 2025, a second generation product to Previs EA, and then a new product in Previs Lung that predicts bronchospasm in asthma patients. As far as funding goes, we're closing out a $2 million convertible round that was led by our primary sales organization for Previs EA. They're a major shareholder and board member, and we're planning a near-term $1.5 million price round that we believe will take us to break even in the first half of 2025. The first product that we have is Previs EA. There's a critical need for solution to what's called postoperative ileus in major abdominal surgery. It's the most common complication in that surgery, acute paralysis of the GI tract that begins greater than 24 hours after surgery. It's the major cause of readmission and prolonged unnecessary length of stay. Problem is that patients who are at risk for this cannot currently be identified, and the protocols that are in place for patients now are very reactive. On the one hand, you have those surgeons who do delayed oral refeeding and delayed discharge. They don't feed you for several days until they believe that your GI function has returned. The advantage is you have zero readmissions. The disadvantage is that they're holding up to 80% of their patients 3 to 5 days longer than necessary. And you lose about $11,000 per case on if Medicare is paying. On the other side, you have early oral refeeding and early discharge. The advantage there is you get a lower length of stay of about 5 days. However, you have a 20% readmission rate, and the hospital is still losing money on those cases. None of this is good for patient care and good for patients, sending them home too early or keeping them in the hospital long enough. And the hospital's also losing money. None of it is optimal. Previs EA proactively identifies at-risk patients and enables personalized post-op refeeding and discharge strategies for better patient care, safer patient care, and for better hospital economics. It's easy to use. You just place it on the patient with an hour of surgery. It's non-invasive. And it quantifies an acoustic biomarker that we call MH4. And this is kind of the discovery and what our three issued patents are surrounding. And at post-op hour 12, it predicts what patients are going to develop an ileus 2 to 7 days after surgery. The benefits of that is that the low-risk patients can go ahead and be refed on the day of surgery and sent home early. The high-risk patients, you delay oral refeeding with delayed discharge, which reduces your readmission rates from about 20% down to about 5%. So you're increasing patient safety, and also you're having better hospital economics along with that. We demonstrate that to hospitals through this. It compares hospitals that do the same difficulty of cases, and it shows how we can reduce their length of stay. In this particular hospital, we could reduce their length of stay up to 4 days. Around the country, about a $2,750 per day hospital is what it costs to keep a patient. That 4 days represents about $11,000. The average Medicare patient is $12,000. So you're actually doing better patient care with better economics. And in intestinal surgery alone, we have a third-party budget impact model that demonstrates in this hospital that we have a positive $10 million budget impact by saving patient days. If you expand that out to all of major abdominal surgery, it would go up by multiples of that because there are a lot more major abdominal surgeries. That $10 million could be anywhere from $50 to $80 million in positive budget impact. We developed something we call the Previs Assurance Program because, as you know, it's difficult to get new technologies in the hospitals. This allows the hospitals to evaluate Previs risk-free. They purchase the devices for us up front, and if we can't show an ROI, we'll purchase those devices back from us. That's how confident we are that we can do this. This has just been rolled out in the past couple of weeks. Also provides us with real-world length of stay and readmissions data that we can use to sell the product to other hospitals. The market is quite large. In the US, 6.3 million surgeries, about a $4 billion market. In the EU, it's about 9.3 million with about another $4 billion. The rest of the world, the data is not clear, but we know that we could at least do another 10 million cases in developed countries in Asia. It is a single-use device, but we're moving to a multi-use device within 12 months. The reason is the current device with gross margins at scale would be about 75%. Reusing the device over again would take those margins up to about 95%. It's sold directly to hospitals. Our sales reps engage surgeon champions and chief medical officers, chief quality officers who are interested in these quality metrics. The average selling price of about $600 provides at least a 4 times and up to even a 20 times ROI, depending on where the hospital currently is on length of stay. And we're expanding that sales rep base from 18 to 32 by the middle of the year. The sales pipeline that we have right now with hospitals who are interested is over about $400 million in total addressable market. We have the 8 Previs clinical sites, with those sites that you see on the screen right here. Those sites will be coming on board as customers, we believe, in the second half of the year when the trial is over in mid-year. So we believe those are coming on very strong. We currently have the device in or going through value analysis committees. And then we have another 12 hospitals that we're working, that we have strong clinical support moving in that direction. We actually have 2 HCA hospitals who want to evaluate the device, which would open up the entire HCA system to us eventually. These are just some numbers that we show you on the hospitals that are currently interested. This is the revenue for these particular hospitals alone, not the ones that are in their system. So here would be about $12 million for these particular hospitals. The 8 clinical sites that we have represents about a $14 million opportunity just in those particular hospitals. But there are 100 hospitals in these particular hospital systems that would make that much larger. This led us to Previs AI, which is our rapid development acoustics IoT wearables platform, which is a totally different deal. It uses machine learning versus feature engineering that we have on the first device and sends everything into the cloud for processing. Previs AI Gut, the second generation device to predict postoperative ileus, is slated to have a 510(k) filed in 2025. It's more accurate. You get continuously improved performance. It's half the cost of a Previs AI device. It takes us from a single use to a multi-use device, which boosts our margins. Then we have another product that we just have lung data on, and to develop a product to predict asthma attacks in asthma patients that fills a real market need for self-patient monitoring now. Right now, patients are doing blowing into spirometers and peak flow blood meters every day. They're supposed to do this like 6 times a day. Nobody does it. You end up with 2 million ER visits a year and about $500,000 hospitalizations. Previs AI Lung is a continuous monitoring device that they wear so that you don't have to do any of that. And we can predict that and let the patient know before they have the bronchospasm when they're going to have it. We can send that data to the doctor's office. So it feels a real need and reimbursement is in place in that market. So we have a really well-rounded management team. I've been doing this 25 years. Dr. John Cromwell is the inventor of our technologies. We have a very experienced board, one of which is the owner of Clinical Technologies, our main sales organization for Privacy A, and we have a very deep sales management team. So capital needs are, we're highly capital efficient. We brought Privacy A to market from an idea through FDA clearance on about $3.75 million in total corporate expenses. There's a path to break even in the first half of the year. And we are closing out a convertible note and opening a price round soon. Most of that money will be driven toward expanding Privacy A revenue, and also in doing a device for Privacy AI lung, and then cash flow break even and 2 FDA submissions in 2025. So that is our story. What are your questions, Hall?
Great. Let's bring up Ji Lee first. Ji, what's your first question?
Buddy, thank you so much for your presentation. It's fascinating. So just if you could talk a little bit about what kind of trial results do the hospitals need to see in order to determine their next step, whether or not to sign up. And if they do sign up, is there some kind of length of contract, or it's just, they just buy whatever they need and they can stop whenever they want?
Right. As far as the trial results go, we just had one published last year in the Journal of Medical Devices. That was our last clinical trial that we internally call the optimization trial, that showed sensitivity of 86% and a negative predictive value of 95%. Those are key statistics in this because, and the device is actually calibrated to maximize those. And so the 86% is terrific because it captures, you don't want to miss patients, right? You don't want to miss patients who might be at risk. The 95% predictive value is really important in this because if the device says that the patient's not going to develop a postoperative ileus, it's correct 95% of the time. That means on those patients where you're getting these long length of stays, you can reduce that because you know that the patient's not going to develop it if the device says it's not. So those are, and we have other clinical data from the American College of Surgeons back in 2019 also that was published as well. So we have the data to be able to do that. We'll have more data coming up when the current trial is over in the middle of the year. Typically, hospitals will sign with us a 3-year contract generally. They will order the devices that they needed based on the surgeon demand within that hospital once it's cleared. We typically start in colorectal surgery because that's the low-hanging fruit, and it's a one call point that we can go to. But then that gets expanded out to other places like urology, where in cystectomies in men who have bladder cancer, that has a postoperative ileus rate of over 30%. We expand it out to make surgical oncology and other places. But it's basically based on the demand from the surgeons that are necessary. And some hospitals, we believe, will even protocolize this in all major abdominal surgeries.
So just a quick follow-up. So do you have 2 groups of patients within the hospital, one group using your device and see how accurate you predict whether they would develop the issue, versus the other group, just their normal procedure, so you can compare the results?
We have not run an intervention trial. And the reason is because that trial is hugely expensive. That would be like a $6 million. And this is part of the Privacy A assurance program. So we let them trial the device in there, and so that we can demonstrate the ROI and the reduced length of stay in those hospitals like that, and with real world data, which is actually sometimes better than running a clinical trial because it is in a real world state, right? These are just doctors who are practicing their own standard of care medicine. Whereas in a clinical trial, you have to follow a very rigid structure to do it that may not even be basically what would really happen. But that's one of the reasons we came up with the Privacy Assurance Program, is so that we can show them directly in their own environment what happens to length of stay and readmissions and cost of care.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Jim, what's your question?
Yeah, thanks, Hall. Buddy, first off, fascinating, great presentation. It sounds like your product fills a real need out there. I had a couple of questions. You talked about an upcoming $1.5 million round. Could you talk a little bit about what that money is going to be used for, and then how does that work into your profit predictions for 2025 of the break-even cash flow?
Yeah, it works out really well for us because a lot of our Privacy, I talked to you about Privacy AI Gut, which is the 2nd generation product. Much of that work is already done. That cloud infrastructure, all that cloud infrastructure for Privacy AI is already done. So, and none of our customers are really expecting a 2nd generation product. We're under not a lot of market pressure to get that to market, and there's no competition out there either. So for those reasons, what we would like to do is we get the 1.5 million. Most of that money, Jim, is going to be used for various efforts to expand Previs EA revenue generation and really ramp that market up. That way, in the second half of the year, we can be finishing off the Previs AI gut thing with revenue instead of having to do it on investment dollars. And we can also begin developing that Previs AI lung product out of revenue. So we have flexibility on those ends to be able to do that. The primary thing for the company right now is to really ramp up Previs EA and do everything we can in those particular efforts to get that so that we're no longer depending on going out and getting the market. And the other thing is it really helps the management team focus our time on that one thing, which is, really ramping up that instead of being out here not that we don't love to talk to you people, we love to talk to you people, but I'd rather be talking to customers trying to ramp up revenue than talking to investors trying to, get it in the door. So, and that's how we get toward the break-even point too, is by really generating, and we only have to generate about $1.6 million in revenue between now and say next May to make that work to get to the break-even point.
Got it. Thank you. Hey, just one more quick question. Can you talk a little bit about the pipeline? You had mentioned a couple of times your current pipeline, the hospitals you're in, and then a future pipeline. Is that current customers under contract for more volume, or is that business development?
Those are customers that we are working with right now and to get them through VAC and to get them prepared to take it through VAC. We have a lot of clinical support in a number of hospitals. As you know, the sales cycle in a hospital is not a short-term thing. It's about a 6-month kind of deal now post-COVID. So we're working with those hospitals to move it. And like in those 2 HCA hospitals, we're setting up the evaluation for those things and getting them to start. We've got we've got one VAC committee coming up in May for Baycare in Florida. We've got another HCA hospital coming up to do that. And then the remainder of hospitals are various schedules for getting it through VAC in the next, say, 3 to 6 months or so.
Great. Thanks, guys. Good questions. And thank you, buddy, for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Great. With that, we'll bring up our next presenter, Scott Keetle, Balance Pharma, and with him, Jason Skuggs.
Hey, everyone. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Scott, and we can see the legal notice.
Super. All right. Well, make sure and read that legal notice. I'm Scott Keetle. I'm the CEO of Balance Pharma. And let's go to that next slide, Jason. Next slide. And next slide. We got too many slides, Jason.
Sure.
Anyway, dental anesthetic. I happen to be a former dentist, and the problem with dental anesthetics is that when you give that shot, it hurts. Part of the reason that it hurts is because there's acid in it, believe it or not, quite a bit of acid to help preserve the drug. The other problem that people have is that, the dentist gives you the injection and then walks out of the room to wait for it to work and comes back what seems to be years later and then goes to work, and sometimes the drug doesn't even work. So there's the long wait. There's the fact that it might not even work when the dentist does get back, and the fact that it stings when it's gone in. So we set out to try to find a solution to that. I've given 40,000 injections, more or less, in my career, and I'm happy to know that a lot of the injections that are going to be given in the future will be a lot better, but unfortunately, I probably won't be giving them. Anyway, next slide, Jason. So what we're doing, we've got a way to deliver a drug that does not have the acid in it, and it solves all those problems that we just talked about without changing anything else about the drug. It has the same shelf life, has the same depth, duration, and safety profile, and uses the same equipment to deliver it with. Go ahead. Yeah. This is just some literature. There's a lot of scientific literature that shows that if you get the acid out of the drug, it does have all these wonderful properties. And again, let's see here. Even in the handbook of local anesthesia, which is in essentially all the dental schools, the author says buffering local anesthetic benefits both the dentist and their patient. Go ahead, next slide, Jason. This is the way we do it, is that we take the the normal drug, and then just as it is put into the syringe, that the cartridge is activated, and it causes a little bit of sodium bicarbonate powder to mix with that acid and neutralize it. It happens instantly. Next slide. We did a lot of market research across the United States and Europe. We talked to dentists, we talked to patients. We got an overwhelming response, and we've also talked to a lot of key opinion leaders across the country. And here's just two of them. Probably the foremost expert in buffering of local anesthetic is Jason Goodchild, and Dr. Goodchild said that would be a game changer. And then Dr. DeMarco is a textbook author on the subject of local anesthesia. And I think he says our solution is elegant, which is, I'm really proud of that because I was the inventor of it. Let's go to the next one. Of course, anytime you've got a drug, you've got to go through FDA, and FDA can be very, very long and expensive and unpredictable for some drugs, but for other drugs, it's very, very predictable and not very long and not very expensive. And ours is luckily one of those. We have a 505(b)(2) path for all you FDA people out there. And it just means that, we have a very predictable, inexpensive, and short route to market. Next slide. This just shows kind of the existing competitive landscape. Lidocaine was first brought on the scene in 1949, and then a very similar drug called Articaine came around in 1973. Both those drugs have long been generic. And then in 2011, a couple of companies came up with a way to mix some sodium bicarbonate into either one of these drugs and get a neutralized effect. But the buffering devices had a lot of problems. They didn't have FDA drug approval. You had to mix them, you had to train your people how to mix them. They weren't in a standard dental cartridge, didn't have a good shelf life, and they were quite expensive, relatively speaking. So our product should come out. I don't think we're going to make the 2026 deadline, so we got to change that slide, Jason. But 2027, we solve all the problems and with none of the difficulty. Go ahead, next slide. This just shows the size of the market. 744 million units in affluent places in North America and Europe and Japan, South Korea. We expect we can take at least a 35% share of that market within 3 years. Next slide. The way we're going to make money is to sell these units wholesale to a well-established distribution network in these markets that we've identified. We expect we can make these units for much less than $1 a unit and sell them for about $3 a unit wholesale, realizing $2 a unit in EBIT. These distributors will resell to end user dentists probably for about $4 a unit, and we expect that the distributors will make about 5 times the profit that they make on the generic. So they should be happy about this product. Then dentists are going to get the product, and we expect that they're going to have just about a 7 times return on investment for the slight price difference. Go ahead, next slide. This just shows what happens if we realize that 35% peak market share. And you see global on one side, North American on the other, and this is just revenue, and then the green line is operating income. And it's a really big drug. You can go ahead. Sorry, Jason. This just shows a timeline. It's a little bit tough to talk about, but because there's a lot of stuff on the slide. But the bottom line is we need about 33 months at a minimum to get this to market. It's probably going to take a few months after that, but we could potentially do it in 33 months, and probably a $20 million total equity raise by the time it's all said and done. Go ahead, next slide, Jason. This is just a team that we're very proud of, and it's too many people to go into, but all these people are subject matter experts. They're the types of people that we need to do the jobs that need to be done to get this thing to market and get it sold. And they all have a lot of experience and a lot of training, and all good folks. Let's go next one. This is our scientific advisory board. Again, we've got an expert in, a key opinion leader in general dentistry. We've got a dermatologist and Mohs surgeon. Lorena Chu is an anesthesiologist. Dr. Donaldson is in pharmacology. Dr. Resnick, Dr. Roberson are oral surgeons. And this is just a few, I don't know how many, but a few of the 100 practicing clinicians that are volunteers to be on our clinical advisory board. We believe that anybody that's going to be successful has to be very hyper-focused on their customers at all times. And, these 100 members of the clinical advisory board represent all the specialties and all the geographies, and they are going to make sure that we stay honest and do a good job for them. And if hopefully give us some good positive feedback and ideas, and also negative feedback if and when we need it, so that we stay close to our customers. This is just a quick rundown on the fact that, versus other life science investment opportunities, we've got a proven market need. We've got a large market, very low regulatory risk, very low cost, fast exit potential, no change in clinical practice, a ripe competitive landscape versus these generics. There's no reimbursement issues because this is just a very trivial cost to a dentist that doesn't have any third-party payers involved. The distribution channels are very easy. You just sell to the wholesale to the distributors, and they are full service distributors to the dentist. Got a long patent life. We think we're going to get to 2045 on patent life, which is really nice and long. And we are a qualified small business stock as of the moment. Go ahead, next slide. The current raise, we're almost reached this $500,000 what we're looking for in the safe round. It's a 20% discounted safe. And then our next upcoming round is a $6 million Series A. And I am going to get yelled at by Hallmark, and you can tell just how comfortable I've gotten with Hall and the gang, because I forgot where I was and started eating a minute ago, and then my phone went off. I think Hall's going to kick me off the meeting next week if I don't start behaving myself. But anyway, that's all of it.
Great presentation, Scott. Thanks so much. Let's start with Jim. Jim, what's your first question?
Hi, let me get there we go. First off, Scott, great presentation. Having just gotten a crown recently, I can tell you that, yeah, it indeed does sting when you get that shot. So thank you for helping solve that.
You bet.
I wanted to ask or see if you could talk to a little bit. You're saying a sub $1 cost to produce these. Are you manufacturing? Is somebody else manufacturing? Is it onshore? Could you walk us through that?
Sure. We've got, I think, at least 4 and maybe 5 really good options. One of them is a CDMO that's existing, FDA inspected. They're in the Midwest. We're almost to terms with them. There's 3 other CDMOs that are all domestic, mainly in the Northeast. One's in Pennsylvania. They're all very good CDMOs. We could use any of them and be just fine and be under that $1. We also have an option that we're looking really hard at going to West Virginia at the old Milan facility, which is 1 million square feet, and they've got existing personnel, and they've got lots of tax dollars to maybe spend with us, tens of millions. So we're really excited about that. And we may end up just making sort of a CDMO of our own.
That's great. That's great. And then one last question. I was trying to follow the dollar, so I think I get this right. So your cost is under $1. You sell them to the distributor for $3. That's where you're making your money. The distributor sells them to the dentist or the dental offices for $4. So I get that. then somewhere in there you mentioned that these were things that weren't billed back out to insurance. So what's the incentive for the dentist to use these?
Well, the dentist buys dental anesthetic cartridges the same way they buy like sponges or, disposable, this, that, or the other thing. So it's not passed along to a patient, not passed along to a third party. It's just part of the dentist's cost of doing business. At the moment, it represents about 0.25% of their business. We expect that, it's going to be about 1%, which is still a very trivial cost. And we think, if we save a dentist, 1 minute of time, we save them $8 to $16. And we think we're going to save several minutes. So it's a tremendous return on just the time savings alone, but also to be able to tell your patient you're using the absolute best product, the same one you use on your mother or your family, or or you when you're getting your crown. I mean, you don't want to hear from a dentist that's using the old cheap product with the acid in it.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thanks, Jim. And G, what's your first question?
Hey, Scott, thanks for the presentation. This is great. We all experience the dental pain, once in our lifetime at least. So just curious, there was a slide that talked about how your products, by reducing or neutralizing the acid, you reduce the pain and so on and so forth. Are those results, did those come from some kind of clinical trial? How did you measure those?
Sure. Jason, can you go back to that slide that's
Yeah.
got the literature on it? So
yeah, give me a second.
all these studies have been done by other folks at the moment. And all they did was just take some standard drug and add the carbonate salt to it and neutralize the acid. And then they got, tremendous results. We didn't put much detail on this slide because we didn't want to clutter it, but we're glad to send you, a better slide that has all the references, or you can look on the website, Jason. I think we have all that on the website.
Yeah, so
But there's a ton of data and meta-analyses that show that this stuff works.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And one quick follow-up too. Obviously, the cost is kind of trivial, and I agree with you that a good dentist would want the least pain for their patients. Now, the only thing is that is there any required change in terms of training for the dentist to use your device, or is it just very straightforward?
I love your question. Zero difference. If you put a blindfold on them, the only way they'd know it was a better drug is when their patient told them.
Okay, great.
Seamless replacement. Yes.
Great. One last thing. You structured this as a safe for this round. Are you pretty set in that, or are you, there's always a debate between convertibles versus safe. I'm sure you've heard about investors' preferences. I just wanted to get your sense in terms of, what your thoughts are on, why you pick safe.
Why we picked a safe?
Mm-hmm.
It just, there's lots of pluses and minuses to all the different kinds of, safes and convertibles. I mean, in the end, a lot of people decided that safe starts with simple, right? And it just seemed like the way to go. So, but I can't, I'm certainly not expert enough to tell you why, one might pick one over the other, but that's what we ended up doing.
Great.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Well, thanks.
Thanks, Steve, for great questions. Thanks, Scott, for a great presentation. With that, we'll move to our next presenter. We have Jeremy Stakowicz of Senzo. Jeremy, let's go ahead and launch your slides and kick off when you're ready.
Sounds good. Thank you, Hall. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the time. My name is Jeremy Stakowicz. I'm the CEO of Senzo. Senzo's in the diagnostic space. So we are at the clinical stage. We're an in vitro diagnostics company. And at the end of the day, we believe that earlier, faster, better, less expensive point of care, including at-home diagnostic products, is what this world needs. right? Better healthcare outcomes, lower cost, happier stakeholders. And we're prepared to do that with our innovative amplified lateral flow ALF platform. So very excited to tell you more about all of that. Fundamentally, the diagnostics, the way we pursue diagnostics is slightly broken. So it's the tip of the spear, right? It's how most of us enter the healthcare system. But ultimately, it's slow, inefficient, and expensive. And that leads to increased disease transmission, high costs, unhappy stakeholders. So it's been a long time coming. This was accelerated during the pandemic, but providers, payers, and patients all want low cost, at home point of care testing. So we're not waiting for the market to kind of come around to embrace this. We're already there. The limitation at this point is technology. And to this point, there isn't a good technology solution that can perform as well as the gold standard tests that you get run through LabCorp and Quest. We had okay tests for COVID. They served their purpose in a pandemic, but that's not going to cut it during routine diagnosis and routine screening. Just having a test that someone says, well, that's nice, but come in and take a real test, you're just adding time and cost to the front end. So huge unmet need here. Voices from all parts of the healthcare system, as well as retailers and customers, healthcare providers looking for this solution. And we're able to deliver it with ALF. So you'll have recognized through the pandemic using Binax Now or Quidel QuickView, a lateral flow test. So our test looks very much like regular lateral flow with a lot of differences inside the test itself. Essentially, we get all the good things of lateral flow. So fast, under 15-minute time to result, very low cost. We can produce this for under $2 fully packaged. And long shelf life, room temperature storage, easy to manufacture, high quality. The missing piece up until now is high accuracy, high performance. So we can replicate central lab immunoassay and PCR testing with this little device. As you can see here, from a competitive standpoint, we check all the green boxes. WHO developed this criteria across 7 different rows here and kind of what the perfect diagnostic would be. Current lateral flows miss a very important element of not sensitive. So lots of false negatives and a limited detection that doesn't meet the others. The others work quite well, but they're slow, they're expensive, they deter healthcare providers and patients from taking them on board. This is how the test works. I'm happy to dive into the science. Essentially, this is a novel approach where we amplify a lateral flow test. There's a physical encumbrance. When you have a positive sample, you light up through an enzymatic reaction, and you get a perfect positive test result. In the case of a negative, it looks exactly the same before and after. To the user, this is seamless. So we've done a lot of usability tests. We've had 6-year-olds run this test, and as long as they can collect the sample, it's very intuitive to use. There's no hardware, there's no software, there's no reader. It's self-contained and built as idiot-proof as possible. This is a platform technology. So almost anywhere you can envision this being used, it can be used. We've done proof of principle using many different sample types, from a nasal swab, mouth swab, urine for something like tuberculosis, and a finger prick whole blood for things like hepatitis C or HIV. So very flexible. Importantly, we can multiplex because sometimes you just have symptoms and you don't know what test to pick to run. So kid wakes up with fever, runny nose, cough. You buy a respiratory triplex test, do a swab, add the sample, and in 10 minutes, you know, unfortunately, you have the flu. You can then connect to, we work with a primary health. We have a QR code on the package and the test. You can scan that. That'll create a test of record, which can be sent to your healthcare provider or epidemiology purposes. But importantly, you can also fire up a teledoc visit. And so flu is a great example where Tamiflu, an antiviral, has been around for decades and almost no one uses it. It'll make you suffer for 3 days instead of 5, but you don't want to get out of bed, go to your doctor's office, have to run tests, have to get a prescription. Here, in the course of 30 minutes, you can pull the test out of a drawer, run it, fire up a telehealth, get a prescription for Tamiflu, and go pick it up at the pharmacy. So that's one example. There's a lot here that could be used in primary care settings, school nurses, employer nurses, urgent care centers, pharmacies. Some of these are also built for reimbursed healthcare professional use, triage going in and admitting into hospital units. A wide variety, a differential test for viral versus bacterial that gives better guidance on when to prescribe antibiotics. This can be used in veterinary, environmental, industrial, in-process testing for gene therapy testing. Most of our work has been focused on human IVD, so things like sexually transmitted infections, hepatitis C, tests that will allow more patients to be diagnosed and treated in a better manner. So as you can imagine, we're a small company. It would take a very long time to pursue all of these indications and then properly commercialize. These are amazingly large markets. Even if you pick the top 6 applications, sexual health, respiratory, Hep C, you're looking at 60 billion plus, enormous markets with very high unmet needs. The test works. The technology works. We've proven this through 3 third-party studies, all of which showed blinded, double-blinded tests of positives and negatives at close to 100% concordance with the gold standard of PCR. So samples tested on PCR, blinded, tested on ours, results recorded and compared, and almost perfect alignment with the gold standard testing, including samples that have incredibly low viral samples that normal lateral flow tests would have no chance at registering positives here. We identified 35 out of 36 positives. So how do we tackle this market? And this gets to the enormity or the potential of a platform technology. So our business model is one whereby, especially in the beginning, as we build scientific credibility and market credibility and lower our financing and resource needs, we will partner with other large diagnostics and in some cases therapeutic companies. So we are well down the path of conversations with groups like Abbott, Roche, Becton Dickinson, Thermo Fisher, Access Bio, bioMérieux, others. So CDAs in place, material transfer agreements in place, even agreeing on what the testing would look like. And the nice thing here is I literally, when we get to design freeze on this product and we can put our absolute best foot forward with these partners, I can put 100 of these in a package, send it to them. They can do their evaluation in a week, and then we're ready to discuss licensing and business development plans. And the idea here is we give an exclusive license to one of these companies. They pick. Roche says, we've always wanted a strep test. Abbott says, we've always wanted a Hep C test. They get exclusive rights to that. They pay us upfront milestones, success milestones, and all of the R&D regulatory costs along the way. And then they commercialize the product with their massive worldwide infrastructure, and we collect a royalty on the back end. All of this also puts us in partnership with large companies who, after doing one of these licensing deals and seeing the success, even as we go into development in 2025, they will quickly realize, why are we doing one-off licensing deals here? We should buy this company, buy this technology. So this is also, from an investment standpoint, the sort of ending to Senzo, in that we believe an M&A transaction is very likely with one of these partners that we sign up. I've covered most of this. We have strong IP. We have a freedom to operate opinion, written opinion that shows we have full freedom to operate, and we are very close to having our first IP granted. It's under examination, and we're just working through the final claims, but we will get that in the next quarter. We have manufacturing partners both in the US and in the UK with Nano Composites and Abington. And we have raised 9.5 million to date. We're always looking for non-dilutive funding. So we have a NIH BARDA grant of 750,000 and a number of other grants that are working their way through the system. This is the team. The two founders are in the middle. Aaron and Yuba are amazing scientists, biochemists, and engineers. Lester spent his career at Philips and understands the regulatory and compliance inside and out. I've spent 25 years in life sciences, the last 15 in diagnostics, Johnson & Johnson, Ortho Clinical Diagnostics. And then I took a company called Quotient from kind of this stage, a couple 100,000 of revenue through venture capital investment, private equity investment, and then took the company public on NASDAQ, and then grew that business substantially from 100,000 to greater than 40 million in revenue. So was there for 12 years and joined Senzo about 3 years ago to take them on a similar voyage. So this round, we're looking to raise 3 to 4 million. We've raised 1.8 million already and are looking to complete that by the end of Q2 if possible, or into Q3. That then sets up for a value creation event the rest of 2024, signing up these licensing partners, and then a Series A in Q4, Q1 of around 10 million. And then we believe because of these partnership agreements, that will likely be the last dilutive funding needed and takes us on the road to an exit in less than 3 years via M&A. So with that, I'll leave up the executive summary slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Great. Let's start off with G. G, what's your first question?
Hi, Jeremy. Thanks for the presentation. This would make home healthcare dream, getting even closer to come true, right?
Yes.
So a couple of quick questions. You've done some clinical trials that are mainly done in the UK. Was there a particular reason to do that versus doing it in the US?
Yeah, and I should say those trials were not fully under sort of CE marking or FDA clinical. They were, indicative trials, double-blinded with third parties, but they aren't necessarily part of our technical file that we would use with FDA or for CE marking. I am based here in Pennsylvania. The company is a Delaware C Corp, so we're fully a U.S. company. The two founders are both in London, and most of the R&D work is occurring in London. All of the R&D work is occurring in London. So the reason for those three sites being in the UK was more just proximity to the R&D group and our sort of low volume manufacturing. But we plan to expand that into the US, and our first regulatory work will be with FDA. So we've had a lot of discussions with FDA. Our BARDA grant, part of that is to fund our FDA clinical studies. So our clinical studies will actually start in the US, not in UK or Europe.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I think it's very smart that you pursue a licensing strategy, which would be, a lot less capital intensive. Now, what do you think the key milestones you need to reach in order for the partners to sign up on licensing your products?
Yeah, so there's a lot of commonality in the conversations with these partners. I don't have to spend a lot of time convincing them of the attractiveness of the market and the opportunity. Abbott made around $22 billion just on Binax Now on COVID, and they would like to replicate that for a lot of other products, as would all of these other guys. So they believe very much in the promise of this. They have technical skepticism, right? Some of that is just not invented here. We're a big company. We haven't figured this out. How could you? So it's really about showing them, and we can show them third-party data. What they really want to see is in their own hands. They want to take the product through its paces, and they want to see, yes, this works as you're claiming. The nice thing is, as I said, is that's a couple week endeavor. So really what's holding up the next phase of signing up these partners is for us to take the first product fully to design freeze so that we know that it'll perform exactly as it should when we put it in the partner's hands. And that timeline for that is end of Q2 into Q3. So all of this is happening pretty imminently. We just need to raise money for runway to get us through the ending of the scientific, finality of the platform, and then do the business development work.
Great. Yeah. Best of luck.
Great.
Thank you.
Jim, what's your question?
Yeah, thanks, Hall. Jeremy, great presentation, and wow, now this is a product I get really, really excited about. So I'm wishing you all the luck in the world. Hey, I just wondered about the. I guess I got a few questions all wrapped in one, and I know we're short on time. So you talk about cost is less than $2 to produce. I'm wondering if that's the same across all the different diagnostics. So would the flu version cost the same as the COVID version? Would cost the same as something else? And then how does it actually, once you do that, how does it actually make money for the partner to entice them to want to do a merger or a buyout from you? How do they make money on it? And at the same time, you getting your back end residual.
Yeah, so I think the cost of goods is not all that tied to the indication unless you ran into an antibody you needed to use that was particularly expensive, but we haven't seen that yet. The vast majority of that is packaging, chassis, all of that. So antibody changes don't make any difference. Actually, the change is more on the selling price. You're going to get more for a Hep C test than you would for a flu test. So it's more, and that comes to your second point, which is what's in it for the Roche or Abbott is they have a product that they can make for $2 and sell for $15 to CVS, Amazon, et cetera. So they have a large margin in there, and if our royalty is say 10% on end user sales, we could end up with a straight profit royalty that's actually even higher than the cost of goods. So even if you're paying a distributor in there, there's a big margin to be had selling into retail or even through hospital systems.
Perfect. That's exactly what it seemed like a B2B, B2B, eventually a B2C, and then a residual. I was just wondering
Yeah.
if there was enough money left over for everybody.
Yeah,
Perfect.
there's a lot of room in there. Thanks, Jim.
Perfect. Perfect answer. Thanks, Jeremy.
Great. If there are any questions from the audience, please go ahead and put them in now. We are at the end of our presenters for today. We had 3, but if you guys in the audience have any questions, please let us know. Oh, wait, we just have our 4th presenter. So in a moment, we'll kick off with Tyler of EndoShunt. Jeremy, thanks for a great presentation. We'll be back in touch with follow-ups here pretty soon. And with that, we'll move to our next one, EndoShunt. Tyler, go ahead and share your screen and kick off. You're just in time.
Yeah, sorry about that, everyone. I was coming off another call. Give me one second. I appreciate your patience and the opportunity to share our story with you all. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Okay, should be coming through now. Hawk, can you just give me a heads up if everything looks okay?
Looks good. Go ahead and kick off.
Amazing. So our goal today is to shed light on an unspoken pandemic that's robbing our young adults of their lives, our families of their loved ones, and our communities of their futures. That public health crisis is uncontrolled abdominal bleeding. And in the 15 minutes we're given to talk to you all today, it'll unfortunately claim another 45 lives. My name is Tyler, and I'm the CEO of EndoShunt. We're a Class 2 medical device on a mission to end these preventable deaths by giving surgeons the gift of time so they can give patients the gift of life. The sad reality from a clinical perspective is that the time to death from abdominal hemorrhage or bleeding once surgery begins is actually shorter than the time it takes to access the sites of these injuries, putting our healthcare professionals in the helpless position of knowing how to save a life while lacking the tools they need to effectively do so. And because of that, there are nearly 2 million deaths every single year worldwide from uncontrolled abdominal bleeding. And unfortunately for us, major causes are on the rise, with things like violent crimes, car accidents, or even complications during routine surgery adding to this problem. Even for those lucky enough to survive, roughly 3 out of every 5 suffer from life-altering complications and nearly a year's worth of painful recovery due to the secondary trauma caused by current treatment alternatives. In over 500 healthcare discovery calls, this problem has rung true. We've heard heartbreaking stories of loved ones unable to return to their families simply because our surgeons lack the tools they need to effectively treat these patients. This industry is in desperate need of a solution, and EndoShunt is that solution. We empower surgeons with the ability to gain rapid, targeted control over abdominal bleeding. Our device is inserted into the femoral artery or vein and traced to the aorta or the IVC, where it can be deployed to occlude blood flow from the inside. EndoShunt's novel size adjustability helps surgeons make sure that their patient's blood is flowing to where it should and not out of where it shouldn't. And once the injury has been fixed, our device is completely removable and temporary in its application. To date, we have proven effective hemorrhage control in both simulation and in animal testing models. In our simulations, our patients lost blood at a rate that would result in death in just over 2 minutes. But EndoShunt gave these same surgeons the ability to stop bleeding in 30 seconds and sustain that over the life of the experiment, buying them the time they need to effectively save lives in the future. But while this is exciting, it's a whole nother challenge to show this kind of efficacy in an animal model. But we're pleased to say that we've done exactly that. What we're looking at now is our device deployed in the IVC of a pig. You can actually see our surgeon pointing to the deployed shunt through a 1 centimeter laceration in this major blood vessel. An injury that would fill the abdominal cavity in blood in seconds shows no active bleed. What's not seen in this video is our effective surgical repair of the injury and the removal of our device without causing any damage to the interior of the aorta or the IVC, showcasing safety and efficacy. This industry hasn't seen innovation since World War II, and because of that, our patients and our providers are suffering. Market alternatives are simply not good enough. Packing is incredibly invasive. It requires the surgeon to open the patient and to race against time to find the site of the injury and to put direct pressure on it. It has limited clinical effectiveness and even gets in the way of surgical repair. Cross-clamping and balloon occlusion go upstream of the site of the injury and cut off blood flow to the rest of the body. While this may mitigate hemorrhage, it also starves our tissues of oxygen, and as little as 30 minutes can lead to irreversible damage as serious as blood poisoning, amputation, or organ failure. EndoShunt really is the only solution that gives our surgeons the time, the targeted control, and the techniques that they need to save lives and drastically improve downstream health outcomes. But don't just take our word for it. Surgeons around the United States recognize the value that we will bring to this market, calling our product a game changer or saying they would use it tomorrow if it were available. And what we love to celebrate here, these are not just any old trauma centers. They are the leaders in trauma care in the United States. Places like George Washington University, where the US president goes in the event of a trauma incident, or Shock Trauma Maryland, which spearheads trauma care in the US, are excited to pilot with us when we get to market. From an IP perspective, all patents are owned by EndoShunt, and we have filed for the category of temporary endovascular shunting, upon which we intend to build platform-level protections that'll help us capture market for decades to come. From a market sizing perspective, we have used the Trauma Quality Improvement Program dataset to accurately define our target markets. Our $366 million beachhead are cases defined by surgeons where we are either the only or the best available solution for abdominal hemorrhage control. From here, we'll expand to all abdominal injuries of relevance, international trauma markets, and other therapeutic areas, giving us access to a nearly $60 billion TAM. We intend to capture this by launching first in trauma, where our expertise is deep and our connections to key opinion leaders is strong. The revenue generated in trauma will fund label expansion into transplant and surgical oncology, and in the future, a second version of EndoShunt will address needs in OBGYN as serious as postpartum hemorrhage. From a financial perspective, our device carries with it a competitive price point compared to our market alternatives, while leaving ourselves a healthy gross margin that any strategic would welcome into their portfolio. But for our trauma centers, we give access to nearly $26,000 of reimbursement on existing codes today, but more excitingly, access to nearly $4 billion of additional care opportunities every single year that they can't access simply because their patients aren't living long enough to receive them. We'll win because we provide value for the patients, the surgeons, and the trauma centers. We reduce mortality, we reduce morbidity, and we reduce recovery time. We make sure that our surgeons have the ability to stop bleeding before surgery and the targeted control to de-risk morbidities throughout the process. And for our trauma centers, we can give competitive pricing, existing reimbursement, and that access to additional care that can help increase their bottom line. From our own financial perspective, we estimate our break even on just 9 trauma centers as early as 2026. At the assumed growth rate of 1 center per sales rep per month, we could produce revenues as high as $53 million in 2027 or nearly $90 million in 2028. Our team is perfectly situated to bring this device to market. I joined this company in March of last year after a decade of cradle-to-grave medical device development that has seen over 60 products get to not just US, but international markets. Michael, our Chief Technology Officer, is a catheter-based engineering expert whose time at Merge Medical Device Studios set him up perfectly to lead our R&D efforts. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by 2 trauma centers who have helped keep a finger on the pulse of this community and ensure that our product is fit for our end users. Outside of our internal team, we boast an impressive network of medical device entrepreneurial support and industry strategy leadership, including our own fractional CFO and connections to Cooley. We have this same support in both scientific and clinical strategy as well, with our regulatory consultants being the same organization responsible for our predicate devices clearance, and the physician-in-chief of Shock Trauma Maryland, the godfather of trauma, not my words, being one of our medical advisors. Outside of our internal team, we're making sure we're partnering with the right external experts to increase our chances of future successes. Our quality management system is directly aligned to regulatory requirements. Our regulatory council are the same organization responsible for our predicates clearance, giving us a fast track and insider's knowledge of being successful in the same measure. Our manufacturing supply chain partners are all US based and industry leaders in their respective materials. And we're even partnered with the US Army and Air Force to make sure our product can address military needs in the future. From a fundraising perspective, we've proven out our concept on just $400,000 of investment. We've showed our customer discovery, we validated our customer discovery through over 500 healthcare discovery calls. We have filed our own IP and we've demonstrated effective hemorrhage control. Currently, we're raising a $2 million seed round with $1.5 million of this already in formal due diligence. This funding will bring us through FDA clearance, and in the future, we predict a $6 million Series A to support our team expansion, IP expansion, and path towards profitability. We're raising this on a convertible note with a 25% discount, 7.5 interest, 2-year maturity, and $8 million valuation cap. And almost all of this funding will go directly towards finishing our device, performing our FDA testing pathway, and filing for clearance. Roughly 17% will be set aside for 2 future hires, which we've already identified the candidates for, including a COO and a VP of Quality and Regulatory. But these last few slides have been everything what we're asking from investors. Now I want to share what we're promising to our seed round investors. And as early as 2026, after we've demonstrated real-world evidence and sold just 525 units in that year, we could generate nearly 10x returns. As we commercialize, with those financial projections showed previously, at 3,500 units a year, we could generate over 21x returns. And finally, capturing just 20% of the US trauma market, not including sales in any other healthcare vertical or country, we could generate over 100x returns for our seed round investors. In the future, EndoShunt will give the gift of time to our trauma surgeons. And by helping us get this device to market, you can get the gift of life to their trauma patients. Thank you.
Great presentation, Tyler. Jim, what's your first question?
Yeah, Tyler, first off, fantastic presentation. I loved your opening, very crisp and lots of good data. I understand exactly what you're trying to solve out there. I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
So I guess I've got one long question. You talked earlier about it's 30 seconds to stop the bleeding, and it can, I think, last as long as 30 minutes. But then it looked like, and I might be wrong on this, but it looked like you haven't gotten all the way through your approval process. So can you walk through, what testing's been done so far, where exactly you're at in the FDA cycle, have you entered it yet, and then what the time frame of that whole piece to market would look like?
Absolutely. Sorry, I've been in meetings the whole afternoon, so my throat's a little dry.
Understood.
What we're looking at now is our FDA testing pathway. We're a class 2 device, which means we have to show safety and efficacy in comparison to a device already on the market. And so we have 3 major pillars that we have to prove. Verification and validation realistically is, can your device function as intended from an engineering perspective? So we've designed our product with our third-party manufacturers to de-risk this pathway dramatically. The next major category is biocompatibility. Are your materials safe around human tissue? What's nice about our materials is they've been in healthcare since 2004, just not used in this novel way. And so again, we've de-risked this portion. The last remaining pillar is our in vivo or our pig model testing. That'll include 2 tests, one for blind deployment and one for deployment through percutaneous access, which basically means not under imaging, and then one for hemorrhage control and repair. We've done both of that in what's called non-GLP, which is just non-good laboratory practice. When we submit to the FDA, we'll have to do that in GLP, which, as you can see, is relatively expensive. So we'll start our manufacturing in September, and we intend to file for clearance on a 6-month shelf liable in the second half of 2025.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great. G, what's your question?
Tyler, thank you for the presentation. This is fascinating. Did I hear it correctly that you've done this testing on porcine models so far?
Yes, we've done a porcine model where we showed both aortic and IVC hemorrhage control.
Mm-hmm.
We've showed surgical repair despite our product being deployed underneath the laceration, which is important. And we've also done post-operation when we euthanize the pig. We remove the blood vessels to observe for any structural damage to the inside of them and demonstrated none. I will caveat, though, that as I mentioned, that was done non-GLP. So this will have to be redone in a controlled, quality audited facility that we've already identified and partnered with, but part of the fundraise is to go to that testing, of course.
Sure, sure. And do you mind going back to the slide that you have all the milestones in terms of the use of proceeds for this round?
Yes, use of proceeds.
Oh,
This
no,
one?
sorry, just that, the slide that you were on. That was good. Okay, so looks like, so this round is for making the MVP, right?
Yeah.
So
So this is really getting us to regulatory clearance. Maybe MVP is not the right terminology here, but what this round is predominantly paying for is our manufacturing runs, which will include all the test materials that we need for all the tests that we have to perform. It'll include all of those engineering tests that I mentioned, our safety test, which is biocompatibility, and our animal testing.
Okay, okay. And so because you have not done any of this on human yet, you have not gotten any feedback from surgeons, probably only from the vets. Is that?
Actually, so all of our testing is done by trauma surgeons.
Okay.
So the way the animal models are run are the trauma surgeons are the ones deploying it, and vets are there to support the animal's needs outside of the actual protocol. What's really important as well is I personally, having done this for a decade, believe customer discovery and user engagement needs to be continuous. So we
Yeah.
actually have a simulated model that we invite surgeons to, I don't want to say test on because that's not true, but to use our device in and get exposure to how it works and provide us feedback and make sure that what we're developing is aligned to what they want to see. So we've done that continuously.
Mhm. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. This has a real potential to save a lot of lives, and
Thank you.
best of luck on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, G. Thanks, Jim. We're at the end of our time. We've taken polls for those who expressed interest in the deal. So at this point, we'll go ahead and wrap up for today. I want to thank everybody for a great presentation and look forward to seeing you guys again on our next panel coming up in a few weeks. With that, we'll go ahead and close it out and see you next time. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.